Welcome to my channel, a lead that bring your story about the love of a mafia boss. Now let's listen.
The rain fell in sheets, each drop a tiny needle against my exposed skin. I clutched Jamie tighter to my chest. My jacket draped over his tiny body rather than my own. His whimpers had subsided to occasional hiccups as he nestled against the only warmth I could offer. The bus shelter provided minimal protection from the November downpour, its metal bench cold and unforgiving beneath me. "Shh, baby, it's okay. Mommy's got you," I whispered, pressing my lips to his damp forehead. But it wasn't okay. Nothing had been okay since Mike cleaned out our apartment and bank account 3 weeks ago, leaving nothing but a hastily scrawled note on our kitchen counter. "Sorry, Ellie. Can't do this anymore. Can't do this anymore." As if our son, our 6-month-old baby, was some kind of temporary commitment he could simply walk away from. As if I was disposable. The eviction notice had come yesterday. Final warning. My waitressing job barely covered formula and diapers, let alone our overdue rent. The landlord's patience had run out, along with my options. I'd spent the day trudging between social services offices, my sneakers soaked through, Jamie fussing in his carrier. Each place offered sympathy, but little immediate help. Waiting lists, forms, procedures, nothing for tonight, when we would officially have nowhere to go. A sleek black car slowed near the curb, its wipers working furiously against the deluge. I ducked my head, pulling Jamie closer. Late-model Mercedes with tinted windows. Probably some businessman lost in this neighborhood, which wasn't known for its luxury vehicles or safety after dark. I expected it to move on, but it didn't. Instead, it stopped directly in front of the bus shelter, engine purring quietly. The rear window lowered with an electric hum. "You shouldn't be out in this weather," a voice said, deep and smooth like expensive whiskey, especially not with a child. I kept my eyes down, heart hammering. Strange men offering help rarely wanted nothing in return. "The bus will be here soon," I lied, knowing the last one had passed over an hour ago. "No, it won't. Not for another 7 hours." Something in his certainty made me look up. The interior light was off, casting the car's occupant in shadow, but I could make out the silhouette of broad shoulders and the glint of a watch that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. "I'm fine," I said automatically, the words hollow even to my own ears. Jamie chose that moment to let out a plaintive wail, as if calling my bluff. "You're soaked through, shivering, and your child is crying." His observation wasn't accusatory, just matter of fact. "My car is warm." I bristled at his presumption. "I don't get into cars with strangers." The window lowered further, and he leaned forward slightly. The amber glow of a distant streetlight caught his features. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, hair the color of wet asphalt. He was younger than I'd expected, perhaps early 30s, and devastatingly handsome in a way that felt dangerous rather than comforting. "Daniel Castellano," he said, as if the name should mean something to me. When I didn't react, a flicker of something like amusement crossed his face. "Now I'm not a stranger." Jamie's cries grew more insistent. I bounced him gently, murmuring soothing nonsense while trying to project more confidence than I felt. "That's not how it works." Mr. Castellano, Daniel, studied me for a long moment before speaking again. "The nearest shelter is 20 blocks from here. It's already at capacity because of the storm." He said this with absolute certainty, as if he'd personally verified this information. "The temperature is dropping. Your options are limited." A chill that had nothing to do with my wet clothes crawled up my spine. How did he know I was looking for a shelter? Was I that transparent, that pathetic? "I can offer you and your child a warm meal and a safe place for the night. Nothing more, nothing less." He reached into his suit jacket and produced a business card, extending it through the window. "Call whoever you need to. Give them my information. Tell them where you're going." I hesitated before taking the card, careful not to let our fingers touch. Heavy cream-colored stock, embossed black lettering. Daniel Castellano, Castellano Investments. A phone number with an area code I recognized as belonging to the wealthy downtown district. "Why would you help us?" I asked, suspicion edging my voice. Something shifted in his expression. A softening around the eyes, perhaps, or a slight downturn of his mouth. "I was once a child in the rain with nowhere to go," he said quietly. "No one stopped for us." Before I could respond, Jamie sneezed, his little body shuddering against mine. The maternal panic was immediate. Pneumonia, fever, hospitals I couldn't afford. I pulled him closer, as if my body heat alone could protect him from illness. "My driver can take you wherever you wish to go," Daniel added, noticing my hesitation. "The shelter, a friend's home, a hotel of your choosing. I won't be in the car." I blinked in surprise. "You'd send your car without you? If that would make you more comfortable." He nodded to the front seat, where I now noticed a broad-shouldered man at the wheel. Marco is discreet and trustworthy. The offer was tempting in a way that made my skin prickle with shame. I had $43 to my name, no roof for the night, and a baby who deserved better than a mother too proud to accept help. "One meal," I said finally, my voice barely audible over the rain, "and maybe a place to get him warm and dry." I nodded toward Jamie, whose eyelids were growing heavy despite his discomfort. Daniel's face remained impassive, but something like satisfaction flickered in his eyes. The car door swung open, held by an unseen hand from inside. I hesitated at the edge of the shelter. One last moment of uncertainty. "I don't make offers twice, Eleanor," he said softly. The use of my full name, not Ellie, which everyone called me, sent a jolt through my system. I hadn't introduced myself. I opened my mouth to ask how he knew, but Jamie sneezed again. A tiny, pitiful sound that made my decision for me. I darted through the rain and slid into the car, cradling Jamie against me. The door closed with a soft, expensive-sounding thunk, sealing us inside. The interior smelled of leather and something woodsy. Sandalwood, perhaps. Heat enveloped us immediately, and I had to fight the urge to groan with relief. Daniel sat across from me, a respectful distance maintained. Up close, I could see that his suit was custom-made, his shoes Italian leather, his watch a Patek Philippe that even I recognized as costing more than a house, old money written in every line of him. "Marco, Westlake Drive," he instructed, pressing a button to raise the privacy partition. He turned back to me, those dark eyes assessing. "You're afraid?" It wasn't a question. I adjusted Jamie in my arms, buying time. "I'm cautious. There's a difference." "Not much of one from where I'm sitting." He glanced at Jamie, who had already begun to doze in the warmth of the car. "How old?" 6 months, I answered automatically. Daniel nodded, as if confirming information he already knew. "And his father?" The question hit like a slap. "Not in the picture," I said tersely. "His loss," Daniel replied, his gaze lingering on Jamie's sleeping face before returning to mine. Something in that look made my breath catch. Not pity, which I'd grown accustomed to, but a cold anger that seemed to exist independently of me. The car moved smoothly through rain-slicked streets, the expensive suspension absorbing every bump and pothole. We turned onto increasingly exclusive avenues, the buildings growing more imposing with each block. "Where exactly are we going?" I asked, a new thread of anxiety weaving through me. "My home," Daniel said simply. "It's secure, private, and has everything needed for your child's comfort." Alarm bells rang in my head. You thought we were going to a restaurant?" A smile touched his lips, but didn't reach his eyes. "You're soaking wet, as is your son. You need dry clothes, a hot shower, and privacy. A public venue offers none of those things." He was right, of course, but that didn't quell the fear bubbling in my chest. I clutched Jamie tighter, and something in my expression must have betrayed my thoughts. "Eleanor," Daniel said, his voice softening. "At any point, if you wish to leave, Marco will take you wherever you want to go." No questions asked. I studied his face, searching for deceit, and finding none. Still, men like him, wealthy, powerful, used to getting what they wanted, were experts at hiding their true intentions. "Why are you doing this?" He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice had a different quality to it. Rougher, less polished. "Because some debts can never be repaid directly. They must be paid forward. The car slowed, turning through wrought iron gates that opened silently at our approach. A massive house loomed before us, its stone facade illuminated by tasteful landscape lighting despite the downpour. Not just a house, a fortress disguised as a mansion. As we rolled to a stop under a covered portico, I noticed the discreet security cameras tracking our arrival and the two men standing at attention despite the late hour and terrible weather. "Welcome to my home," Daniel said, as Marco opened the door, holding an umbrella ready. "Let's get you and your son inside." I stepped out, clutching Jamie to my chest, a strange sense of crossing a threshold I couldn't return from settling over me. Daniel emerged behind me, his hand hovering near the small of my back without quite touching me, guiding, claiming. As we approached the imposing front door, I should have been more afraid than I was. I should have insisted Marco take us to a shelter. I should have never gotten into the car in the first place. But as the heavy door swung open, revealing the warmth and light within, all I could think was that for tonight, at least, Jamie would be safe and dry. What I didn't realize then, couldn't have known, was that Daniel Castellano had been watching me for weeks, that our meeting in the rain was no accident. That the umbrella waiting for us, the baby supplies already stocked in a guest room, the women's clothing in precisely my size hanging in the closet, none of it was coincidence. By the time I stepped across his threshold, I was already his. I just didn't know it yet. The foyer of Daniel's mansion swallowed us in marble and mahogany, the soaring ceiling making me feel even smaller than I already did. A crystal chandelier cast diamonds of light across the polished floor, and somewhere, a fire crackled. The contrast between the storm outside and this sanctuary of wealth was jarring, like stepping from one world into another. "Mrs. Abrams will show you to your room," Daniel said, nodding toward an elegant older woman who appeared silently at his side. Her silver hair was pulled into a neat bun, her black dress simple but clearly expensive. Her eyes, a warm hazel, assessed me without judgment. "The blue suite has been prepared," she said to Daniel, before turning to me with a gentle smile. "You must be exhausted, dear. Let's get you and the little one settled." I clutched Jamie closer, suddenly aware of how we must look. Me in my dripping clothes, hair plastered to my face, Jamie bundled in his worn onesie beneath my jacket. We were rainwater stains on imported silk. "Eleanor." Daniel's voice pulled my attention back. "Mrs. Abrams was a pediatric nurse before coming to work for me. Your son is in good hands with her." Something in his tone, the absolute certainty, the subtle command beneath the reassurance, made me nod despite my reservations. "Thank you," I managed, my voice smaller than I intended. "I'll have dinner sent up in an hour," he continued. "Rest. We'll talk afterward." It wasn't a request. I followed Mrs. Abrams up a sweeping staircase, feeling Daniel's eyes on me until we turned down a hallway lined with what looked like original artwork. Each painting was lit with its own discreet fixture, museum-quality pieces displayed casually, as if priceless art was simply wallpaper in this house. "Here we are, Mrs. Abrams said, opening double doors to reveal a suite larger than my entire apartment. The walls were painted a soft blue-gray, the furnishings cream and navy, a fire already burned in a limestone fireplace, and through an open door, I glimpsed a bathroom bigger than most bedrooms. Most shocking of all was the white wooden crib, positioned near a massive four-poster bed. "Is there anything special the baby needs?" Mrs. Abrams asked, moving to turn down the bed. "Formula preference? Allergies?" I blinked, disoriented by the question and the crib's presence. He's on Enfamil. No allergies that I know of. But how did you—" "Mr. Castellano is thorough," she replied, as if this explained everything. "The bathroom has everything you should need. Robes, towels, toiletries. There are clothes in the closet that should fit both of you." My unease deepened. "Clothes? For both of us?" Mrs. Abrams nodded, seemingly untroubled by my growing alarm. "Would you like me to hold the baby while you shower? Or I can prepare a warm bath for him first." Jamie stirred against my chest, his little face scrunching as he woke. The maternal instinct to protect him warred with the practical need to get him clean and comfortable. I hesitated, then made a decision. "If you could help me bathe him first, I'd appreciate it," I said cautiously. Mrs. Abrams smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. "Of course, dear." To my surprise, she was indeed skilled with babies. Her movements were efficient, but gentle, as she helped me undress Jamie and test the water temperature in the massive marble tub. She produced baby soap, soft washcloths, and a hooded towel that looked brand new. "How long have you worked for Mr. Castellano?" I asked, trying to sound casual as we bathed Jamie together. "Almost 15 years, she replied, supporting Jamie's head as I washed his tiny chest. "Since he was quite young himself." "And what exactly does he do?" I pressed, hoping for some insight into the man who had rescued us from the rain with such calculated precision. Mrs. Abrams considered the question. "He has various business interests," she said finally. "Investments, real estate, imports. He's a very private person." The non-answer was telling. I decided to try another approach. "Does he often bring strangers home?" Her hands stilled for just a moment before resuming their gentle work. "Mr. Castellano values his privacy," she repeated. "He doesn't entertain often." Jamie splashed happily, oblivious to the undercurrents of our conversation. When he was clean and dressed in a soft new sleeper that fit him perfectly, Mrs. Abrams offered to hold him while I showered. "I'll be right here," she promised, settling into a rocking chair near the fireplace. "Take your time." Reluctantly, I handed Jamie over, watching as he immediately relaxed in her experienced arms. The hot shower was a luxury I hadn't experienced in weeks. Unlimited hot water, pressure that worked out knots I'd forgotten I had, toiletries that smelled of jasmine and sandalwood. I stayed until my fingers pruned, washing away more than just rain and grime. When I finally emerged, wrapped in a plush robe, I found Jamie asleep in Mrs. Abrams' arms, his rosebud mouth slightly open, one tiny hand curled against her cardigan. "There's a nightgown on the bed," she said softly, "and a robe. Dinner will arrive shortly." After she left, I stood dripping on imported rugs, staring at the clothes laid out for me. The nightgown was ivory silk, simple but clearly expensive. Beside it lay matching underwear with the tag still attached, La Perla, in exactly my size. The knowledge that Daniel had somehow anticipated my sizes sent another chill through me. I dressed quickly, transferred Jamie to the crib, and was brushing my damp hair when a soft knock came at the door. A young man in black trousers and a white shirt entered with a covered tray, set it on a small table by the fireplace, and left without a word. The meal was simple but perfect. A bowl of homemade chicken soup, crusty bread still warm from the oven, a small green salad with vinaigrette. There was also a glass of white wine, which I ignored. I needed my wits about me. I had just finished eating when another knock came. This time, it was Daniel. He'd changed from his suit into dark trousers and a charcoal sweater that made his eyes look even darker. "May I come in?" he asked, remaining at the threshold. I nodded, suddenly aware of the silk clinging to my body. I reached for the robe and pulled it on, belting it tightly at the waist. Daniel's gaze flicked to the crib where Jamie slept peacefully, then back to me. "You look better," he observed. Less like a drowned cat. The unexpected touch of humor surprised a small laugh from me. "Thank you for everything. But I have to ask, how did you know my name? And why do you have clothes that fit me? A crib ready for my son?" Daniel moved to the fireplace, staring into the flames for a long moment. "I make it my business to know things," he said finally, "and to be prepared." "That's not an answer." He turned back to me, his expression unreadable. "No, it's not." He gestured to the 2 armchairs flanking the fireplace. "Shall we sit?" I perched on the edge of one chair, hyper-aware of my bare feet on the plush carpet, the silk sliding against my skin, the strange intimacy of being alone with this man while wearing clothes he had provided. "Your husband took everything," Daniel said without preamble. "Not just your savings, but items from your apartment, your car. He left 3 weeks ago, Tuesday evening, while you were working a double shift at Rosalie's diner. He cleaned out your joint account of $3,842 and maxed out your credit card on cash advances." My blood turned to ice. "How could you possibly know that?" Daniel continued as if I hadn't spoken. "He wasn't your husband, though, was he?" Just your boyfriend. Jamie's birth certificate lists no father. Stop, I whispered, trembling now. How do you know these things? He's in Atlantic City, Daniel said, his voice hardening. He lost most of your money at the Borgata. The rest he spent on a prostitute named Candy and a bus ticket to Miami. Tears stung my eyes, not for Mike, whom I'd already mourned and buried in my heart, but for the violation of having my life laid bare by this stranger. Why are you telling me this? Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. In the firelight, his face was all angles and shadows, beautiful in a way that made my chest hurt. Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I want you to understand that I already know everything about you, Eleanor. Your student loans from the nursing program you had to abandon when you got pregnant. Your mother's death when you were 14. Your father's remarriage to a woman who made it clear you weren't welcome in their new life. Each word was a knife, precise and cutting. I wrapped my arms around myself, a futile shield. What do you want from me? Something changed in his expression then. A softening, perhaps, or a shift from businessman to something more human. Right now? Nothing. You need rest. We'll talk tomorrow. He stood, towering over me, and I had to resist the urge to shrink further into the chair. One question, he said, his tone almost gentle. The most important one. Did you love him? The question caught me off guard. I thought of Mike. His easy smile, the way he'd spin me around the kitchen on Sunday mornings, how he'd read sports statistics to Jamie while the baby was still in my womb. I thought of his gradual withdrawal after Jamie's birth, the growing resentment, the mounting bills, the accusations that I'd trapped him. I thought I did, I answered honestly, but love shouldn't feel like drowning. Daniel nodded, as if I'd confirmed something he already knew. Sleep well, Eleanor. You're safe here. As he reached the door, I found my voice again. Why me? Why us? There must be dozens of women with children on the streets tonight. Why stop for me? He paused, hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. I told you, I was once that child in the rain. There's more to it than that, I insisted. No one prepares like this for a random act of charity. Now he did turn, and the look in his eyes made me wish I'd remained silent. There was possession there, determination, something ancient and male that had nothing to do with charity. Get some rest, Eleanor, he said again, softer this time. Tomorrow is soon enough for difficult conversations. The door closed behind him with a quiet click, leaving me alone with my sleeping son and a growing sense that I had stepped into something much deeper and more dangerous than a simple rescue from the rain. I moved to the crib, watching Jamie's peaceful breathing, his perfect little features relaxed in sleep. Whatever game Daniel Castellano was playing, whatever his intentions toward us, one thing was clear. He had resources, power, and information I could never hope to match. For tonight we were warm, fed, and safe. Tomorrow, I would need to decide how much of my soul I was willing to barter for my son's security. Because men like Daniel Castellano never gave without expecting something in return. The question was, what exactly did he want from me? I climbed into the massive bed, silk sliding against my skin like water, and stared at the ceiling. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but it seemed distant now, separated from us by wealth and walls, and whatever web Daniel had begun to weave around us. Safe, he had said. You're safe here. But as I drifted toward sleep, I couldn't help wondering if I had simply traded one kind of danger for another, far more seductive kind. Morning light filtered through gauzy curtains, casting the blue suite in a dreamlike glow. For a moment, I forgot where I was. The silk sheets, the plush mattress, the unfamiliar weight of luxury surrounding me. Then reality crashed back as Jamie's hungry cries pierced the quiet. I scrambled from bed, rushing to the crib. I'm here, baby. I'm here, I murmured, lifting his warm, squirming body into my arms. His face was flushed, tiny fists waving in frustration. A soft knock at the door preceded Mrs. Abrams, already dressed and carrying a tray. I thought I heard our little man, she said, setting down the tray to reveal a bottle already prepared. Perfect temperature. Mr. Castellano said you'd likely be waking around now. I accepted the bottle, trying not to think about how Daniel seemed to anticipate my every move. Jamie latched on immediately, his earlier distress forgotten. "There's breakfast for you as well," Mrs. Abrams continued, gesturing to the covered dishes on the tray. "And Mr. Castellano asked me to inform you that fresh clothing can be found in the dressing room. He would like you to join him in his study when you're ready." "No rush," she added, noting my expression. "He said to take your time." When she left, I sat in the rocking chair, feeding Jamie while my mind raced. The smell of coffee and warm pastries from the breakfast tray made my stomach growl, but anxiety dulled my appetite. What would Daniel want in exchange for his hospitality? What would I be willing to give? After Jamie was fed, changed, and settled on a plush blanket with toys that hadn't been there the night before, I investigated the dressing room. What I found made me freeze in disbelief. Rows of clothing, dresses, pants, blouses, sweaters, all in my size, many still with tags from high-end boutiques. Shoes lined one wall, handbags another. In built-in drawers I found lingerie, sleepwear, even casual clothes for lounging. A separate section held baby clothes in varying sizes, as if designed to grow with Jamie over time. This wasn't impulsive charity, this was preparation. Meticulous, calculated, and deeply unsettling. I selected the most modest outfit I could find: dark jeans, a simple cream sweater, and flat shoes. The mirror reflected a woman I barely recognized, the designer clothes transforming me from harried, exhausted single mother to someone who might belong in this world of wealth and power. The illusion was thin, though. No cashmere sweater could disguise the uncertainty in my eyes or the tension in my shoulders. With Jamie in my arms, I ventured out of the suite for the first time. The hallway stretched in both directions, lined with closed doors and more artwork. I hesitated, unsure which way to turn. "The study is downstairs, east wing," came a voice, startling me. A man in a dark suit stood at attention near the stairs. Security, not household staff. His build was similar to Marco's from the car, muscular beneath the tailored jacket. "I can escort you, Miss Thompson," I nodded, swallowing my questions about how he knew my name or destination. As we descended the grand staircase, Jamie babbled happily, reaching for the crystal drops of the chandelier with chubby fingers. The guard led me through corridors of marble and mahogany to a set of double doors, knocked once, and opened them without waiting for a response. "Ms. Thompson and the child, sir," he announced, then stepped aside to let us enter. Daniel's study was less imposing than I had imagined. Bookshelves lined 3 walls, filled with leather-bound volumes that appeared well-read rather than decorative. A large desk dominated the space, but he wasn't seated behind it. Instead, he stood by tall windows overlooking manicured gardens, a phone to his ear. "Handle it," he said tersely into the phone before disconnecting the call. He turned, his expression softening almost imperceptibly when he saw Jamie in my arms. "Eleanor, I trust you slept well." "Yes, thank you," I replied, suddenly very aware of how I stood, too straight, too stiff, like a supplicant before royalty. Daniel crossed the room, his movements fluid and confident. He stopped closer than social norms dictated, studying Jamie with undisguised interest. "He has your eyes," he observed. "Though the rest is—" He trailed off, something dark flashing across his features. "May I?" The request to hold my son surprised me. Daniel didn't strike me as the type of man who sought physical contact with babies. Still, I found myself transferring Jamie into his waiting arms, our fingers brushing in the exchange. Daniel held him with unexpected competence, supporting his head and back properly. Jamie stared up at this new person, his expression curious rather than fearful. "He's calm," Daniel noted. "Trusting. Like his mother." I bristled at the implication. "I'm not trusting," I countered. "Just practical." A smile touched his lips. "Is that what we're calling it?" He returned his attention to Jamie, who had become fascinated with the expensive watch on his wrist. "You should know that I've taken certain liberties while you slept." My body tensed. "What does that mean?" Daniel gestured toward a leather sofa near the fireplace. "Sit, please." I obeyed, perching on the edge of the cushion as he joined me, still holding Jamie with surprising ease. "I had my attorney file for an emergency stay on your eviction," he said. "Your belongings are being packed as we speak, and will be placed in secure storage until you decide what you'd like done with them. My mouth opened, then closed. You can't just... I also settled your outstanding debts, he continued, as if I hadn't spoken. Rent, utilities, credit cards. Your student loans have been paid in full. The room seemed to tilt. Why would you do that? Daniel's dark eyes locked with mine. Because I can. And because you needed it done. I can't repay you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm not asking you to. Jamie squirmed in his arms, and Daniel handed him back to me with the same careful precision. Our fingers touched again, longer this time, and something electric passed between us. Awareness, perhaps, or warning. What do you want then? I asked, clutching Jamie like a shield. Daniel stood, moving to pour coffee from a silver carafe on a side table. Sugar. Cream. Black is fine, I answered automatically, impatience rising. Please don't avoid the question. He handed me the cup, his expression contemplative. What I want, he said slowly, is to offer you a proposition. My throat tightened. What kind of proposition? A practical arrangement, he replied, sitting across from me now. You need security, stability for your son, a future beyond minimum wage and constant struggle. And what do you need? I asked, the coffee cooling untouched in my hands. His eyes never left mine. Companionship, a family, an heir. The implication hung between us, both outrageous and terrifyingly logical. You want me to be what? Your mistress? Daniel's expression hardened slightly. I'm offering you marriage, Eleanor. Legal, binding with all the protections and privileges that entails. The cup nearly slipped from my fingers. That's insane. You don't know me. I know everything about you, he corrected. Your medical history, your academic records, your family background, your financial situation, your work history, the fact that you wanted to be a nurse before life intervened. He paused. I know you're intelligent, resilient, and fiercely protective of your child. I know you have no family support, no safety net, and limited options. Each word felt like an invasion, clinical and cold. That's not knowing me, I said quietly. That's surveillance. Perhaps, he conceded, but it's given me enough information to know you're suitable. Suitable, I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. Like a breeding mare. For the first time, a flash of genuine anger crossed his face. I'm offering you and your son a life of privilege and protection, everything you could never provide for him on your own. The truth of his words stung worse than any insult. Jamie deserved better than shelter uncertainty and dollar store diapers. Better than a mother working double shifts just to keep them afloat. Why me? I asked again, the question that had haunted me since the moment his car stopped in the rain. You could have anyone. Someone from your world, someone beautiful, educated, connected. Daniel was silent for so long I thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its businesslike tone. My mother was 16 when she had me. My father was a man who saw an opportunity in her vulnerability. He used her, then discarded her when she became inconvenient. I clutched Jamie tighter, maternal instinct flaring at the implication. We lived on the streets, in shelters, wherever she could find work. Until one night, during a storm much like yesterday's, she left me under an awning while she... He paused, jaw tightening. While she earned enough for our next meal. Horror washed over me as I understood what he wasn't saying. She never came back. Daniel continued, his voice detached now. Later, I learned she had been killed by her client. I was 7 years old. I spent the next 3 years in the system before a distant relative finally claimed me. I'm sorry, I whispered, meaning it. His eyes refocused on me, present again. You remind me of her, not in appearance, in spirit. The determination to protect your child at any cost. But that doesn't explain why you want to marry me. Daniel set down his cup, leaning forward. I built my empire from nothing, Eleanor. I clawed my way out of poverty through intelligence, ruthlessness, and absolute focus. I have wealth, power, respect. What I don't have is legacy, and you want Jamie to be that legacy? I asked, pieces falling into place. You want to adopt my son? I want to give him my name, Daniel corrected. To raise him as my own, to provide him opportunities I never had until it was almost too late. His gaze intensified. And yes, I want more children, heirs of my blood. The implications made my cheeks burn. This is medieval. Arranging a marriage with a stranger for dynastic purposes, a smile ghosted across his lips. The practice has endured for millennia, because it works. Emotional attachment is fleeting. Practical arrangements endure. And if I refuse, then Marco will drive you wherever you wish to go, with enough money to start fresh. No strings, no obligations. Your debts will remain settled. The generosity of the alternative offer surprised me. Just like that? Just like that, he confirmed, though I should mention that the offer expires today. I'm not a man who leaves things to chance or wastes time on uncertainty. Jamie began to fuss, perhaps sensing my tension. I bounced him gently, buying time to think. I would need conditions. Daniel's expression shifted to one of interest. Name them. I want to finish my nursing degree, I said, the words tumbling out before I could second-guess myself. I need purpose beyond being your wife. The word felt strange on my tongue. He nodded. Acceptable. What else? Jamie comes first. Always. His well-being, his happiness. Naturally. He would be my son in every way that matters. I took a deep breath. And I would need time to get to know you. Before... I couldn't finish the sentence, my face heating again. Daniel watched me carefully, something almost predatory in his gaze. Separate bedrooms, then. Until you're ready. I'm not a monster, Eleanor. I don't take unwilling women to my bed. The blunt statement made me look away. How long would this arrangement last? Until death, he said simply. I don't believe in divorce. Whatever marriage I enter will be permanent. Permanent. The word echoed in my mind, heavy with implication. A lifetime bound to this dangerous, powerful man. A lifetime of security for Jamie. A lifetime of never having to worry about shelter or food or opportunity. I need time to think, I said finally. You have until tonight, Daniel replied, standing to signal the end of our conversation. 7 o'clock. We'll have dinner and you'll give me your answer. As if summoned by unspoken command, the door opened, and Mrs. Abrams appeared. I can take the little one for his nap if you'd like, she offered. Give you some time to yourself. I hesitated, then made a decision. Thank you. That would be helpful. I kissed Jamie's forehead before handing him over, watching as Mrs. Abrams cooed softly to him. When they left, I turned back to Daniel, who was watching me with that same unreadable expression. The gardens are particularly peaceful for thinking, he suggested. Marco can show you the grounds. It was a dismissal, but also an opportunity, space to breathe, to consider the impossible choice before me. As I reached the door, his voice stopped me. Eleanor, he called, softer now. Whatever you decide, know that it's been a long time since I've wanted something as much as I want you to say yes. The raw honesty in his voice followed me as I left the study, haunting me with possibilities I had never dared to imagine. The gardens were as immaculate as everything else in Daniel's world. Carefully planned, meticulously maintained, beautiful in a controlled way that spoke of power rather than whimsy. I wandered stone paths between manicured hedges and seasonal blooms, Marco's presence a constant shadow 30 paces behind me. My mind churned with impossible choices. Marriage to a virtual stranger, a dangerous man with obvious secrets, versus returning to a life of grinding poverty and constant insecurity. A life where Jamie would have everything, versus a life where I would have my independence. Safety versus freedom. Luxury versus dignity. I found a stone bench beside a small reflecting pool and sat, watching koi fish glide beneath lily pads. The fish were beautiful prisoners, I realized. Pampered, protected, but confined nonetheless. Was that what I would become? He's not what you think, came a female voice behind me. I turned to find a young woman approaching. Perhaps a few years younger than me. She wore riding clothes, jodhpurs, polished boots, a fitted jacket, and carried a helmet under one arm. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, her features delicate but strong. I'm sorry, I said. startled by her sudden appearance. She sat beside me without invitation, her posture relaxed but elegant. "Daniel, he's not what you think." I glanced back at Marco, who had moved closer but remained at a respectful distance. He showed no concern about this woman's presence, which meant she was known, expected, allowed. "And what do I think?" I asked cautiously. A smile touched her lips. "That he's a monster, a manipulator, a man who collects people like others collect art." She extended her hand. "I'm Sophia, by the way, Daniel's sister." I shook her hand automatically, processing this new information. "Eleanor," I replied, then frowned. "He didn't mention having a sister." Sophia laughed, the sound unexpectedly warm. "Of course he didn't. Daniel compartmentalizes his life with surgical precision. I'm the messy variable he can never quite control." She studied me openly. "So you're the one he's chosen." The statement made my skin prickle. "I haven't agreed to anything. But you will," she said with certainty. "They always do." Ice formed in my chest. "They." Sophia's expression softened. "That came out wrong. There haven't been many. Only 2 serious prospects before you. Neither worked out." "What happened to them?" I asked, not entirely sure I wanted the answer. "Nothing sinister," she assured me, seeming to read my thoughts. "The first couldn't handle the lifestyle. The security, the restrictions, the constant awareness of wealth and power. The second..." She hesitated. "Let's just say her interests were financial rather than familial." I absorbed this, wondering where I might fit in this pattern. "Why are you telling me this?" Sophia sighed, looking out over the gardens. "Because my brother, for all his brilliance, is terrible at explaining himself. He sees the world as a series of transactions and strategic moves, but his heart..." She tapped her chest. "His heart is more complicated than he lets on." "He told me about your mother," I said quietly. Surprise flickered across her face. "Did he? That's..." "Daniel
unusual.
Rarely speaks of the past. We have certain similarities in our situations," I explained vaguely. Sophia nodded slowly. "The single mother part, yes, though from what I gather, your circumstances are quite different from hers." She paused. "Our mother was an addict, you see, brilliant but broken. She loved Daniel fiercely, but her demons loved her more." The revelation shifted something in my understanding of Daniel. The controlled exterior, the need for power and security, the obsession with legacy. "After he found me," Sophia continued, "everything changed. I was 14, living with a foster family in Boston. He was 22, already building his empire. He spent 3 years and a fortune tracking me down. I'm only his half-sister, different fathers. But to Daniel, blood is everything." "He found you," I repeated, thinking of the resources he'd deployed to investigate me. "And brought you here? Gave me a home, an education, opportunities I never dreamed possible." Her voice held genuine warmth. "Daniel can be controlling, possessive, even frightening when crossed. But he protects what's his with everything he has. I'm not his," I said firmly. Sophia's smile was gentle but knowing. "Yet." She stood, brushing invisible dust from her riding pants. "The choice is yours, of course, but if you're worried about Jamie, don't be. Daniel would die before letting harm come to a child in his care. It's his one absolute principle." As she turned to leave, I called after her. "Why did you come talk to me?" She looked back, her expression serious now. "Because Daniel deserves happiness, even if he doesn't know how to seek it properly, and because everyone should go into a Castellano arrangement with their eyes open." She nodded toward the main house. 7 o'clock. "He'll be wearing the blue tie." I watched her walk away, her words echoing in my mind. Everyone should go into a Castellano arrangement with their eyes open, as if this were a normal business transaction rather than a life-altering decision. I spent the rest of the afternoon with Jamie, playing on a blanket in a sunny corner of the vast house where Mrs. Abrams had set up an impromptu nursery. My son seemed completely at ease in these opulent surroundings, giggling at new toys, and falling asleep in a crib worth more than everything I'd ever owned. At 6, Mrs. Abrams appeared with a dress, midnight blue silk, that flowed like water when I held it up. "Mr. Castellano thought you might like this for dinner," she said, laying it carefully across the bed. Beside it, she placed a velvet box. And these. Inside the box nestled a simple pearl necklace with matching earrings. Elegant rather than ostentatious, but clearly valuable. The gesture felt like both offering and claim. "Jamie will be well cared for while you dine," Mrs. Abrams assured me, misreading my hesitation. "I'll be with him the entire time." I nodded, throat tight with emotions I couldn't name. "Thank you." When she left, I sat on the bed, the dress cool beneath my fingertips. What was I doing here? Playing dress-up in a world I didn't belong to, contemplating a bargain that would change Jamie's life. And mine. Forever. But what was the alternative? Return to nothing, to uncertainty and fear. At precisely 7, I descended the main staircase, the silk dress whispering around my ankles, the pearls cool against my throat. My hair fell in loose waves around my shoulders, my face bare of makeup save for a touch of mascara and lip gloss I'd found in the bathroom. Daniel waited at the bottom of the stairs, his gaze tracking my descent with an intensity that made my skin warm. He wore a charcoal suit with a blue tie that perfectly matched my dress. Planned, coordinated, controlled, like everything else in his world. "You look beautiful," he said simply when I reached him. "Thank you," I replied, noticing how he didn't touch me. No hand at my back, no kiss on the cheek, nothing to suggest intimacy or possession. Not yet. He led me to a dining room where a single table had been set for 2, candles casting golden light across fine china and crystal. A fireplace crackled at one end of the room, the flames reflected in polished silver. "Wine?" he offered after I was seated. "Just a little," I agreed, wondering if alcohol would make this easier or more dangerous. The meal progressed with impeccable service from staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. We spoke of neutral topics, the unseasonable weather, the history of the house, built in 1897 by a shipping magnate, acquired by Daniel 10 years ago, the gardens I'd toured earlier. It wasn't until dessert, a delicate chocolate soufflé that melted on my tongue, that Daniel finally addressed the question hanging between us. "Have you made your decision?" he asked, his voice level, giving nothing away. I set down my spoon, meeting his gaze across the flickering candlelight. "I have conditions," I said, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. "Additional ones." Interest sparked in his dark eyes. "I'm listening." "I want everything in writing. A legal contract that protects Jamie and me if things don't work out." Daniel nodded once. "My attorneys will draft whatever you require." "I want to finish my nursing degree," I continued. "Not just classes, a full career if I choose. As I said earlier, that's acceptable." I took a deep breath. "I want honesty about your business. All of it. I won't live in ignorance of where the money comes from or what risks might touch Jamie." His expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Some details are better left." "No," I interrupted, finding courage I didn't know I possessed. "I need to know what I'm agreeing to, what world I'm bringing my son into." Daniel studied me for a long moment, then inclined his head. "You'll have as much transparency as is safe for you to have." It wasn't a complete victory, but it was something. "And I want your word that if I ever feel Jamie is in danger from anything or anyone connected to you, you'll let us leave. No questions, no pursuit." This condition made his jaw clench, a muscle ticking beneath the smooth skin. "You're asking me to agree to lose my family on your subjective assessment of danger. I'm asking you to put Jamie's safety above your desire to possess us," I countered. We stared at each other across the table, the first real battle of wills between us. Finally, he gave a sharp nod. "If, and only if, there is genuine danger to the child that I cannot mitigate, I would allow it. But it would have to be real, Eleanor. Not imagined, not exaggerated, and not manufactured as an excuse." It was as much as I could hope for. I took a sip of water, gathering my thoughts for the final condition. "And I want your promise that you'll try, genuinely try, to make this a real marriage. Not just an arrangement, not just a transaction." Surprise flickered across his features before he controlled it. "What exactly does that mean to you?" "It means that if I'm giving you my life, my body, my future," I said softly, "I want something more than financial security in return. I want the possibility of respect, of affection, of partnership. Daniel's expression shifted, something unreadable moving behind his eyes. "You want me to love you," he said, the words neither question nor accusation. "I want you to be open to it," I clarified. "For both of us. I don't want to live the rest of my life as a glorified employee." He was silent for a long moment, fingertips resting lightly on the stem of his wine glass. "Love is unpredictable, Eleanor, dangerous. It makes people irrational, vulnerable." His voice had a distant quality, as if reciting lessons learned through painful experience. "I can promise respect, fidelity, protection, consideration for your happiness. But love..." He shook his head slightly. "I won't promise what I'm not certain I can deliver." His honesty, though painful, earned my respect. "Then promise to try," I insisted. "That's all I'm asking. That this isn't just a business transaction to you." "It never was," he said quietly. The simple admission hung between us, weighted with implications neither of us was ready to examine. "Is that a yes?" he pressed, setting down his glass. I took a deep breath, feeling as though I stood at the edge of a cliff. "Yes, I'll marry you." Something flashed in his eyes, triumph, relief, possession. There and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, placing it on the table between us. "I had hoped you'd agree," he said, pushing the box toward me. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside nestled a ring unlike any I'd seen before, a large oval diamond surrounded by smaller sapphires, set in platinum. It looked antique, valuable beyond measure, heavy with history. "It was my grandmother's," Daniel explained, watching me closely. "She gave it to me before she died, made me promise I would only give it to a woman worthy of being a Castellano." The gesture struck me unexpectedly. Not a new ring purchased for the occasion, but a family heirloom, a piece of his closely guarded history. I lifted it from the box, the stones catching the candlelight. "May I?" he asked, extending his hand. I placed the ring in his palm, then offered my left hand. Daniel slid the ring onto my finger with deliberate care, his touch lingering longer than necessary. The ring fit perfectly, another detail he had somehow anticipated. "We'll be married Saturday," he said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "Small ceremony here at the house. Just family. This Saturday?" I blinked. "That's only 3 days away. I see no reason to wait. The paperwork is already being prepared, including adoption papers for Jamie." He squeezed my hand gently. "Unless you need more time?" The question seemed genuine, his first real concession to my feelings over his preferences. "No," I said after a moment. "Saturday is fine." His smile was small, but real. "Good. Sophia will help with whatever you need." As if mentioning his sister had summoned her, the dining room door opened and Sophia entered, her earlier riding clothes exchanged for an elegant black dress. "I take it congratulations are in order?" she asked, her gaze falling to the ring on my finger. Daniel stood, gesturing for her to join us. "Eleanor has agreed to become my wife." Sophia's smile seemed genuine as she kissed my cheek. "Welcome to the family, then." She turned to her brother. "The Millers just arrived. They're waiting in the study." Daniel's expression hardened. "I told Marco no interruptions tonight." "It's urgent, apparently," Sophia replied, something meaningful passing between them. Something about the Baltimore shipment. I watched the silent communication, reminded again that I was entering a world with rules and dangers I didn't yet understand. Daniel turned to me, his expression softening slightly. "Business that can't wait, I'm afraid," he said, sounding genuinely regretful. "Sophia will see you back to your room." Before I could respond, he lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles just above the ring. The gesture was old-fashioned, courtly, yet sent unexpected heat coursing through me. "Until tomorrow," he murmured, then released my hand and left the room with measured strides that nonetheless conveyed urgency. Sophia looped her arm through mine as we climbed the grand staircase. "So, you said yes," she observed, no surprise in her tone. "Was there ever any doubt?" I asked, echoing her earlier certainty. She laughed softly. "With Daniel, very little happens by chance." We paused outside the blue suite, where I could hear Jamie's soft babbling from within. "He's a good man," Sophia said unexpectedly. "Complicated, controlling, sometimes frightening, but good at his core. Remember that in the difficult moments." I studied her face, searching for the truth behind her words. "Will there be many difficult moments?" Her smile turned sad. "In any marriage? Yes. In this one," she hesitated. "Let's just say Daniel's world comes with unique challenges. The Baltimore shipment," I said, testing the waters. "What is it?" Sophia's expression closed slightly. "That's Daniel's business to explain." "Which he won't," I guessed. "He will," she corrected. "If you make him understand why it matters to you. Daniel responds to logic, not emotion. Remember that too." With a final squeeze of my hand, she left me at my door. I entered to find Mrs. Abrams rocking a sleepy Jamie, his eyelids heavy. "He's been an angel," she reported, transferring him to my arms. "No trouble at all." After she left, I changed into the silk nightgown, removed the pearl jewelry, but kept the engagement ring on. Its weight felt strange, significant. I laid Jamie in his crib, then curled up in the window seat overlooking the gardens, now silvered by moonlight. What had I done? Agreed to marry a man I barely knew. A man with obvious secrets and power I couldn't begin to comprehend. All for security, for Jamie's future, for an escape from the desperate uncertainty of my previous life. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Expecting Mrs. Abrams, I called quietly, "Come in." The door opened to reveal Daniel, his tie loosened, a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. "May I?" he asked, remaining at the threshold. I nodded, drawing my knees closer to my chest as he entered and closed the door behind him. "I apologize for the interruption earlier," he said, moving to stand by the window. "Some matters can't wait, even for engagement dinners." "The Baltimore shipment," I said, watching his reaction carefully. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture tightened. "Sophia mentioned it? Only the name," I assured him. "Is it something I should be concerned about?" Daniel studied me for a long moment, then seemed to come to a decision. He sat in the armchair adjacent to my window seat, setting his drink on a side table. "I import luxury goods," he said carefully. "Art, antiquities, specialty items. Sometimes the paperwork is complex. Occasionally there are issues with customs officials or regulatory bodies." It wasn't the whole truth. I could see that in the measured precision of his words, but it was more than I had expected. "Is it legal?" I asked bluntly. A smile touched his lips. "Not always entirely, no." The honesty surprised me. "And that doesn't bother you?" "Laws are written by men, Eleanor. Often flawed men with limited understanding of the world's complexities." He leaned forward slightly. "I operate by a different code. My own moral framework." "Which is?" "Protect family above all else. Honor commitments. Never break your word once given." His eyes held mine. "Never harm the innocent, especially children. And always, always repay debts, whether of gratitude or vengeance." A chill ran through me at the last part. "Vengeance," I repeated softly. "Justice," he amended. "The kind that courts and laws often fail to provide." Jamie stirred in his crib, making small snuffling sounds. Daniel's attention immediately shifted to him, his expression softening in a way I hadn't seen before. "He looks like you when he sleeps," Daniel observed. "Peaceful, trusting." "He has no reason not to be," I said. "He's never known real hardship, and he never will," Daniel promised, his voice hardening with conviction. "Not while I draw breath." The vehemence of his declaration touched something in me, the part that had been carrying the weight of Jamie's future alone for so long. Tears pricked unexpectedly at my eyes. Daniel noticed immediately, moving from the chair to sit beside me on the window seat. "What is it?" he asked, brows drawing together. "Nothing," I said, brushing at my eyes. It's been a long time since anyone else worried about him, about us. Since it wasn't all on me," understanding dawned in his expression. Cautiously, as if approaching a wild animal, he reached out to brush a tear from my cheek. The touch was gentle, warm, startling in its tenderness. "You're not alone anymore, Eleanor," he said softly. Whatever else happens between us, whatever challenges we face, you'll never have to carry that burden alone again. I don't know which of us moved first. Perhaps me, seeking comfort. Perhaps him, offering it. But somehow my head came to rest against his shoulder, his arm slipping around me with careful restraint. We sat like that for a long time, watching moonlight paint silver patterns across the floor. Not lovers, not yet friends, but something in between, two survivors of different storms, finding unexpected shelter in each other. When Jamie's soft cry finally broke the silence, Daniel released me without hesitation. I moved to the crib, lifting my son and bringing him back to the window seat. "May I?" Daniel asked, holding out his arms. I placed Jamie in them, watching as my son studied this new man with solemn eyes before breaking into a gummy smile. Daniel's face transformed at that smile, something raw and vulnerable flickering across his features before disappearing behind his usual controlled mask. "Saturday," he said, gently bouncing Jamie. "You'll be a Castellano, both of you." "Yes," I agreed, the full weight of my decision settling over me like a mantle. Heavy, but not crushing. Binding, but also protecting. Outside, clouds drifted across the moon, casting the garden in momentary darkness before revealing it again. Changed somehow in the shifting light, like my life, plunged into shadow by Mike's betrayal, now emerging into a different kind of light, not the future I had imagined, but perhaps one where Jamie could thrive, where I might find purpose beyond mere survival. And perhaps, in time, where a man who had never known true family might learn what it meant to love rather than simply possess. Daniel handed Jamie back to me, his fingers brushing mine in the exchange. "Good night, Eleanor," he said, rising to leave. At the door, he paused, looking back at us with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I'll see you in the morning." "Good night," I whispered as the door closed behind him. Jamie yawned against my shoulder, his warm weight an anchor in the sea of uncertainty I had chosen to navigate. Whatever happened next, whatever secret still lurked in Daniel's world, one thing was certain. Our lives had irrevocably changed the moment that black car stopped in the rain. For better or worse, we were now part of Daniel Castellano's world, claimed, protected, perhaps even cherished in his own complex way. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear and uncertainty, I found myself hoping that my final condition might someday be met, that what had begun as a transaction might, against all odds, transform into something real.